Have you ever looked at a language like Japanese and just your brain kind of short circuits? Like, where do you even begin? It feels like this massive, unclimbable mountain. But what if I told you there's a map, a clear path, right to the top? Well, that's what we're going to find today.
Right? It's a huge question. Do you just start by memorizing thousands of words, or do you dive headfirst into complex grammar rules? Well, the real answer is it's about building. It's about starting with the smallest possible pieces, like tiny Lego bricks, and just learning how to put them together, one logical step at a time.
So for this explainer, our map is going to be the Genki textbook. Now, this isn't a book review, okay? We're simply using its structure as a blueprint to understand the fundamental roadmap of how a language is taught and learned from absolute zero.
We're going to climb what I like to call the learner's ladder. We'll start with the absolute foundation, the characters. Then we'll move on to building basic sentences, add some action with verbs, and finally learn how to connect ideas to express more complex thoughts.
First things first, before you can even dream of saying a single word, you have to be able to read and write the basics. In Japanese, this means getting to know the characters. You simply cannot build a house without bricks, and these are your first bricks.
So here's the first big surprise for a lot of learners. Japanese doesn't have one alphabet, it has three working together. You have hiragana and katakana, which are phonetic. Each symbol is just a sound, kind of like our ABCs. Then you have kanji, which are characters borrowed from Chinese that represent whole ideas. The genius here is that you start with the first two, which gives you the tools to write any sound before you have to tackle the more complex kanji.
And look at how this is taught. On the left, you've got a page for hiragana, used for native Japanese words. On the right, that's katakana. It looks a little sharper, right? That's used for foreign words, like terebi, for television. The method is simple but powerful. You trace the characters in these grids over and over again. It's not glamorous, but it works, building that muscle memory until you can write them without even thinking.
All right, so once you have some characters under your belt, you can actually start putting them together. Let's move to the next rung on our ladder and see how we form our very first complete thought.
This right here is the hello world of Japanese grammar. X, wa, y, des. It simply means X is Y. It's the most basic declarative sentence you can make. But with this single pattern, you can suddenly introduce yourself, state your nationality, or identify an object. It's an incredibly powerful first step.
What's brilliant here is how quickly you get to use this pattern. You're not just memorizing a rule, you're applying it. See this exercise here? Miss Ogawa is Japanese. You just take Ogawa-san for X and Nihonjin for Y, and you plug them into the formula. Boom! Instantly, you've gone from knowing characters to forming a real, meaningful sentence.
And on that very same page, we see another crucial building block, the particle no. Now, particles are tiny words that work like grammar glue, telling you the function of the word right before them. No is the particle for possession. So Takeshi's telephone number becomes Takeshi-san no denwa bango. It just connects the two nouns together. Simple as that.
So far, our sentences have been these static statements of fact. This is a pen. I am a student. But to have a real conversation, we need action. So let's move to the next step and see how to make our sentences, well, move.
Now things get way more dynamic. You know how in English we say I eat versus I ate? Well, Japanese does the same thing, changing the verb's ending to show the tense or to make it negative. This is called conjugation, and it's what turns your static sentences into descriptions of actual events.
This table makes it super simple. Let's take the verb to eat, or taberu. To say I eat, it becomes tabemasu. See that mas ending? Now to say I don't eat, it becomes tabemasen. The core of the verb is the same, but that little ending changes everything. It's a really simple, elegant system once you get the hang of it.
Okay, so we've learned to state facts, and we've learned to describe single actions. But how do we connect them? How do we string ideas together to talk about our day or make a request? For that, we climb to a higher, really important rung, the T form.
I love this concept because it's not a tense like past or present. The T form is a special conjugation that turns a verb into a connector. It's basically a grammatical Swiss Army knife that lets you do a whole bunch of new things with just a single tool.
So, what can this Swiss Army knife do? Well, one attachment lets you make polite requests. Another lets you describe an ongoing action, kind of like the ing in I am eating. And maybe the most powerful one lets you connect actions in a sequence
turning simple phrases into an actual story.
And this workbook page shows it perfectly. Look at Takeshi's morning routine. He gets up, then he eats breakfast. In Japanese, the te form lets you combine these into one fluid sentence. Okite, asa gohan o tabemasu. I get up and then eat breakfast. Suddenly, you're not just listing events, you're telling a story.
So, that's our climb up the ladder. We started with the absolute smallest pieces, the characters. Then we learned to make simple statements. After that, we brought those statements to life with verbs and tense. And finally, we learned how to weave those actions together into more complex, flowing ideas. You see? Each step builds directly on the one before it.
You know, looking at this whole process, this methodical journey from single characters to compound sentences, it kind of makes you wonder, is this just about learning Japanese, or is there a bigger lesson here about how we learn any difficult skill?
So what's the secret? It's not some hidden trick. It's having a clear, logical path laid out in front of you and just walking it one step at a time. Whether you're learning Japanese, a musical instrument, or any new skill, the roadmap is everything. The key is to trust the process and take that first step.